Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into today's regularly scheduled programming, I wanted to address why I didn't post any videos last week. As I'm sure you may have noticed, in the past week, the internet has taken a collective pause to listen, learn, and share resources about the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight for anti-racism and against police brutality. Last week was not business as usual, and so I didn't post any videos because I wanted to give you the time and space to focus on listening, learning, and self-educating around this topic, and that is what I spent my time doing as well, rather than creating YouTube videos. Last week was not business as usual, and this week continues to be not business as usual, and it shouldn't go back to normal in the future, and I don't want this video to seem like it's me going back to normal. Up until this point, my brand online has been very uncontroversial and approachable, and I haven't really spoken out about causes or issues that are important to me, and that needs to change. I'm personally right now on a journey of learning about all of the different ways that my own white, privileged, and deeply ingrained subconscious and conscious racism has benefited me as a white person in society. And I wanted to share with you some resources that I have been reading and watching and learning from in the description below. I really encourage you to check some of this stuff out. I think it is very worthwhile and very necessary to learn about and also to share about in your circles. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you want to grow on Instagram. I know most of the people that watch me on YouTube, they want to have a platform. And so I want to encourage you to always use that platform for good, including sharing about Black Lives Matter and the fight against police brutality and racism. So the description has some resources I really want you to check out, plus some links to organizations you can donate to and petitions that you can sign. Really what I wanted to highlight here is that going forward on my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and my podcast, things are not just going to go back to normal. Will I keep sharing about Instagram advice? Definitely, because I know that is a way that I can help you on your own social media or entrepreneurial journey. But I have really recognized, along with many other people this past week, that I need to be more intentional about speaking about these very, very important human rights issues and using my platform to highlight the voices of people who have been marginalized by our society. In all areas of my life, personal and business, I'm working on how I can become more inclusive and anti-racist in the ways that I do business, hang out with people in my life, show up online, whatever it may be. And I really want to make sure that this work doesn't stop just after it becomes no longer trendy or no longer part of the news cycle. We all need to continue to work on dismantling racism together, and I think a big part of that work is starting with yourself and realizing where you have been complicit and how you've been contributing to the problem. Anyway, check out the resources in the description. Make sure you go and listen to voices of people that are actually experts, unlike myself. But I just felt like it would be a mistake not to say something about this and not to just be totally real with you about where I'm at. With that being said, I did film a video for you all that is about how to get your first 100 followers on Instagram, which is what you clicked on this video for. So let's get into that. But remember to check out those resources after, okay? So you clicked on this video because you want to learn how to get your first 100 followers on Instagram. Well, you are definitely in the right place, my friend, because this video goes out to all of my fellow creators that are striving to hit triple digits. Make sure you keep on watching because I'm going to give you 3 strategies that you need to know to get that Instagram account up and running and get those 100 followers. Keep on watching. So for many of you out there who are trying to get your first 100 followers on Instagram, you're likely in one of 2 situations. For one, maybe you just started this Instagram account. Maybe it's brand new and you don't have any content there at all. You're planning to start a new project and you want to know how to get it off the ground. Or number 2, you might be restarting an account that you've previously only used for personal reasons and you're trying to turn it into a brand or a business because you want it to grow. Whether you have literally 0 followers or maybe 30 or 50, these tips are going to help you get your account to the place where it needs to be in order to hit 100 followers and beyond. The very first thing you need to do before you focus on growing more followers is step number 1, which is make sure that you have 9 super high quality posts on your Instagram grid. You really want to make sure that your brand or business or personality is represented well in the content that you have on your feed before you really start putting a lot of effort into growing. The steps that I'm going to talk about later in this video really focus on how you can use engagement and outreach to start to grow that audience. But the problem is, if you do that before you're ready, you'll start getting that traffic to your profile, but you'll find that not many of your profile visits will actually convert into follows. If you only have 1 or 2 photos, people don't really have enough content to go off of to decide if they would want to follow you or not. So you really want to make sure that you have at least 9 images. And the reason why I say that is because when you open up Instagram on your phone, go to somebody's profile, you'll see that you'll be able to see roughly the first 9 images on their page. So it looks full and complete. If you started scrolling down, you might notice that there wasn't much more content, but you want to at least fill up the space on your profile before you really start putting a lot of effort into driving traffic to your profile. And it's important that these posts are not just filler posts that are meant to look cute on your grid, because somebody who's really considering following you will likely actually tap on some of those photos and see what the content is about, which is why I really recommend using my Instagram content calendar and content matrix strategy for coming up with the topics that you're going to talk about and then actually writing some high value posts and captions that will be a part of that group of 9 posts that you start with. So let's talk a little bit about my Instagram content matrix strategy just for a minute in case you are new to my videos. I have a whole video about developing a really strategic and consistent Instagram content calendar, which you can check out right here after you're finished watching this video, but I'll give you a brief rundown right now. Basically, what you want to do is use my Instagram matrix, which you can download for free if you want at katiesteckley.com/calendar. Essentially what this is just a chart, and you could just draw this on paper too. You don't have to use my Google Doc. What you want to do is come up with 3 subtopics within your niche that you would want to talk about on Instagram. You're going to put those 3 topics across the top of the chart. And then along the left-hand side, you're going to do 3 rows, and those 3 rows are going to be encouragement, education, and entertainment. The 3 E's are the general way that I think about providing value to an audience, which is ultimately what our Instagram content is all about. We need to be giving something to somebody else. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people have when they're first starting to grow their account, is they just think about, what do I want to share? What photo makes me look good? What do I want to put on my profile? And that's great if it's for personal use. If you're just collecting your own memories or sharing milestones with your friends, totally go for it. But if you want to actually build a business or an audience, then you need to start thinking about how you can create content that serves other people. How can you educate them or entertain them or encourage them in some way? So I personally just use those 3 categories as ways to brainstorm the kind of content that I could provide to my audience. And essentially what I do is I think about each of those categories and then each of those subtopics as the 9 different things that I might write about in my Instagram captions. Now it works out perfectly because our goal is to come up with 9 posts to start out your Instagram profile with, and to give your new potential followers a really good idea of the kind of content that you're creating. I would encourage you to come up with 1 post in each of those 9 boxes and use that as your 9 initial posts on your profile. That way, people that are visiting your profile will get a sense of the kind of stuff that you talk about and the different ways that you're going to be providing value. Then moving forward in the future, you can keep brainstorming content topics within that grid and just cycle through them in your content calendar. And like I said, I have a whole video about how you can use that method, so check it out. I will link it in the description. All right, once you have a good plan of what your first 9 posts are going to be, I would honestly say just go ahead and post them, especially if you only have 0 followers, or even if you have 20 or 30. They will forgive you if you kind of spam their feed while you get that content out there. I don't think at this point it's essential that you have a strict posting schedule to get those 9 initial posts out there. After you have your profile filled with some good quality content that gives your potential followers a good sense of what you create, then I would start implementing a consistent posting schedule. But in the meantime, don't worry too much about that. The priority is getting those 9 initial posts on your profile. The sooner that you have them there, the sooner you can really start putting effort into growing. The other note I want to make really quickly before we move on to number 2 is just that if you are in a position where you're taking a personal Instagram and moving it into a brand or business account, you might feel discouraged at first because there might be some people who unfollow you. It'll seem really sad and oh no, I'm losing followers and I'm trying to gain them. Don't worry. Anytime that you switch niche or purpose with any account online, there's going to be a certain number of people that kind of stop following you because they initially followed you for a certain reason, maybe for your personal life updates or pictures of your dog or whatever, and now you're pivoting and you're posting about your business or your services or whatever your mission is with your Instagram, so they might not be interested in that anymore. And I really want to encourage you to not think about unfollowers as something to regret or be disappointed about, but rather think about it as your audience refining itself. You really want to have a super highly engaged audience that seriously cares about what you're creating. And if you have a ton of people that are sticking around just because they feel guilty or obligated to be following you, they're not really going to be engaging with you or ultimately buying the product or service that you're offering. So don't get stressed if people unfollow you in this change from personal to business. It's okay. It's all going to work out. You're opening yourself up for even more growth in the future. In general, that's the message that I want to send out to people, because I often get DMs on Instagram of people freaking out because they got unfollowed and they're, feeling really down about people unfollowing them. Look, there are probably dozens of people that unfollow me every single time I post, and you know what? I don't even keep track anymore. That used to stress me out. That used to bother me. But now I just realize if they feel like they want to unfollow me, good, let them go. They should spend their time elsewhere, because I only want people following me if they actually care about me. I would hate to think that I'm annoying somebody by showing up in their feed, so I would rather they unfollow me. And then the people who still follow me are the ones who are actually likely to engage. Anyway, with that mini rant over, let's move on to the second strategy that you need to implement when you're growing your account to your first 100 followers. And that is making sure that your bio is super clear. While you're in the midst of making those 9 initial posts, I want to encourage you to really work on refining your bio, so that again, when you get those initial people visiting your profile, you have a really clear bio where you make it very obvious what you offer and what your content's going to be about. Plus, you have at least 9 really good examples of what you're able to offer them moving forward. When it comes to creating a clear bio, it's essential that you have an idea of what your niche is and what you're going to be offering your followers. And of course, you're going to want to figure that out before you really do step 1, because that's going to help you come up with the topics that you're going to be discussing in your videos. If you want some more in-depth tips about how to figure out what your niche is, I actually made a whole video about it again. Pretty much if you want to know something about Instagram, I probably made a video about it. But I really cannot overstate the importance of having a clear niche and purpose for your account, because if we're really, really honest with ourselves, if you looked at your profile right now and you didn't know the person in those photos and you didn't know the story behind those captions, would you care to follow them? The answer might be no. And that's why I want you to be very, very sure of what value you offer, because I'm just afraid that if you go into it without a clear purpose or a clear idea of what you're giving other people, you're going to be disappointed pretty quickly when you don't gain a lot of followers. And that's because, unfortunately, people aren't out here just wanting to follow random people, and hear about their kid or their dog or the walk they went on this afternoon. People want to be given value, whether it's in the form of encouragement, entertainment, or education. So think about how you can provide that to people and who you would want to provide that to, because it's just as important to have a niche in terms of what topic you want to discuss as it is to have a niche in terms of what audience you want to target. So really, really think about those things and try to figure out how you can best represent that in your bio. And you can definitely change it and test it and see what works, but make sure you have something that is very clear and explicit before you really start step 3, which is probably what you all came here for. And this is how we're actually going to start getting people to come to your profile. You need to start engaging and posting regularly. Now, I want to make it really clear right now before we dive into the strategies for engagement. What this is all about is true and authentic relationship building with other people on Instagram. What we are not going to do is randomly follow and engage with and spam people in certain hashtags only to unfollow them a week later when we realize they didn't follow us back. That is the opposite of any strategy that I would want to suggest to you guys, because that is exactly how you're going to get the most spammy, uninterested people following you. You want people to follow you who genuinely care about what you're posting about. And if that means a smaller number of people at first, that's okay, because they actually care about your posts. They don't just care about whether or not you followed them. The whole follow unfollow thing is completely outdated, and honestly, I'm surprised we didn't leave that in 2016, but I still hear about it today, and that's why I just want to tell you, do not do that. This is what we're going to do instead. First, you're gonna start by just posting on a regular schedule. You need to get used to creating content super regularly and providing that value and getting it on your profile. I know that at sometimes it might feel like, nobody's gonna notice if I post anyway. I hardly have anybody following me. Why do I need to bother doing this? And if anything, it's important to do it because it gets you in the routine of posting frequently. So someday when you do have more followers to create content for, you will be used to the idea of posting 2 times a week, 3 times a week, every day, whatever schedule you choose. Get in the habit of creating content regularly and make sure that content is high value and high quality so that people will actually want to follow you. This will also help build up your own content library of stuff on your grid so that when new potential followers do arrive at your profile, they'll see what you've created and they'll be more likely to follow you because you have a better track record of proving that, you do make good stuff and interesting stuff and they want to see more of it. In addition to a super consistent content schedule, you need to follow that up with a super consistent engagement strategy. What this is going to look like is actually going out, doing outreach, and finding your ideal audience wherever they hang out on the platform. This might be in hashtags, it might be in the comments of big creators in your niche, it might be in the tagged photos of that podcast account you love, it might be in location tags if you happen to be a locally based business or brand. This is where you can go and start having conversations with people, learn about what they like, learn about how you can help them, and definitely don't be spammy about this. I cannot emphasize that enough. Don't go around just talking to every single person that seems like they might be interested, saying, hey, get my free ebook, or hey, follow me, I provide value. You shouldn't be going and telling people you provide value. You should be going and proving that you provide value by answering their questions, giving them tips and suggestions when they ask for it. Giving unsolicited advice is probably one of the most annoying things on the internet and just in life in general, so definitely don't do that. But if you see somebody in the comments saying, hey, what's a good way to start a podcast? Like, say to their favorite podcaster, and their favorite podcaster happens to have 1 million followers, so she can't respond to every single person. So what you're going to do is slide into that comment section and say, hey, I actually have a really great ebook about how to start a podcast. Or even better yet, just say, hey, here are my 3 best tips for starting a podcast. Do this, this, and this. Provide all the value in one place without asking for anything in return. And that's how people are going to start to appreciate you and trust you as a source and maybe end up following you. It's all about the long game. This is not about just like doing as much pestering of people until we get people to follow us, because that's not going to create a genuine engaged audience. It's about going out and doing nice things for people without asking them to do anything for you. And eventually they will appreciate that and want to follow you because you have a good track record for providing value. When you do start getting new followers, I want to encourage you to DM every new follower you get. Send them a quick message and say, thanks so much for following me. If you ever have any questions about insert my niche here, feel free to ask. My DMs are always open. It's a great way to start a conversation, get to know your existing followers better, and it means they're more likely to stay a follower and become a more engaged and loyal fan of your content. Not only did they just follow you, but they just got a personal message from you, inviting them into a conversation. So now they're going to be way more likely to actually comment on your posts and stay a follower forever. Also, don't be afraid to share about your new profile on your other social accounts. You have a Facebook page with your friends and family. Tell them to follow your Instagram account if they're interested in your content. If you have any kind of email list or YouTube channel or TikTok, I don't care where it is, just share about that Instagram profile in other places where you might happen to have an audience, and that will eventually help you to grow to that special 100 milestone. Also, even though it might seem like a lot to just be growing an Instagram account, I want to encourage you to consider picking up a second content platform where you can create more evergreen content, the kind of thing that's searchable and can be found over time. For example, you might want to consider starting a blog or a YouTube channel, because creating content on a platform like that allows your content to be continually found through search, whether it's in Google or YouTube search or wherever, and those people might eventually go and find your Instagram through that other content that you've created. This is just really helpful because Instagram isn't always that discoverable. A lot of people are not on Instagram searching for stuff, and that's why within Instagram itself we need to implement these engagement strategies in order to go out and meet more people and bring them to our content. Whereas on a platform like YouTube or even with a blog, it's a bit more organic and natural to just put your content out there and people might eventually find it if you're targeting the right search terms. So that's something else to consider as you grow to 100 and beyond. Let me know in the comments where you're at with your Instagram journey, because I would love to know if you found this helpful, or if maybe you're past 100 followers, maybe you want to know how to hit 1K or 5K or 10K. Let me know in the comments where you're at so I can make more videos like this that will help you along your Instagram journey. Now, speaking of that content calendar video I mentioned earlier, you're definitely going to want to check that out next because I explained how to use that Instagram matrix and how to create a super consistent and high value Instagram content calendar that is going to encourage those potential new followers to actually hit the follow button and keep your existing followers super engaged. So make sure you go watch that video next, and of course hit the subscribe button. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you over in this video. Okay, bye.